The gross receipts tax in the city of Las Cruces is currently 8.0625%, one of the highest amongst New Mexico's most populous cities. This summer, the city passed a resolution that will put the question to voters on whether that tax is raised. This November, City of Las Cruces residents have a choice of raising the gross receipts tax by 0.325%, or roughly 30 cents for every $100 spent. Now, advocates for this tax say that the money will be used for things like park improvements, public safety resources, and other quality of life improvements. Although those against the tax say that the city should be looking for other sources of revenue as to not put the burden on taxpayers. Deputy Director of Economic Development for the City of Las Cruces, Chris Favor, said that if the increase is passed, then it would mean approximately $11 million annually for the city, which he said would be set aside from the general fund.
If this measure passes, the intent is that they will set up, through the internal financial structure at the city, a fund where these monies come in every year and they're set aside specifically for projects that City Council votes on. So the plan would be after it passes, it will go into effect in July of 2025, and then as those revenues come in, they will be set aside internally for use on whatever projects Council then identifies to use those funds for.
If voters pass the increase, then Las Cruces residents will be paying the highest gross receipts tax among the top 5 most populous municipalities in the state, although Favor said that this is only part of the story.
The reality is, the more projects that we have up and running and have funding, the more likelihood it is that we can get money from the state. It's not an apples to apples comparison to say that just because the GRT in one city is lower, then those citizens are paying less money than Las Cruces is. So yes, it will be a little bit higher, but also relatively speaking, our property taxes are a lot lower here than in a lot of other communities in New Mexico.
But not all residents are sold on the idea of increasing the GRT. Michael L. Hayes is a retired Las Cruces resident and blogger, and said that the city should be focusing on fiscal responsibility rather than seeking a higher GRT rate.
I'm not quite sure what is buying if it went through. I've heard that they're going to have it as a set-aside and make up their mind after they've got the money. That's a strange ask. My thinking is that the city has got enough money in its budget to finance these things without asking for more money if they were more efficient in using the money they already collect.
Hayes pointed to a number of LCPD lawsuits, as well as his own settlement against the city tied to violations of the state's Inspections of Public Records Act as an example of fiscal irresponsibility from city leadership.
I think that if a city were run on good government principles and respect for the taxpayers' dollars, I would expect that a city would come forward with an actual plan of why we need additional funds, and they would specify what those projects are. I think that the citizens need to know what the money is going to be spent on, not give the city a blank check and then say, go to the mall and treat yourself.
The mayor of Las Cruces, Eric Enriquez, is a vocal supporter of the increase and said that if Las Cruces wants to see improvements, then the city needs more money to work with.
I truly do understand that taxes are a burden. I understand that taxes are viewed negatively. I know that government in the same way, but I ask the community to trust, to put the faith and trust in us that we're going to put it in the right direction so that our community can thrive and that burden turns into a blessing.
Mayor Eric Enriquez said it would be a permanent tax hike with no sunset period, and said that if the ballot measure doesn't pass, then the council won't raise the tax via ordinance, even though they technically have the power to do so.
Yes, it would be permanent. There's a 0.25% increase that mayor and council have the authority to initiate without a voter turnout. Just bring it to council, and if it's approved, then vote on a 0.25 increase. We've elected not to do that so that we can take it to the voters and go for the 0.325 increase and not mess or deal with the 0.25.
As the general election approaches, Las Cruces voters face a choice of raising their own taxes for additional funding for the city, or indicate that the city should find a different path for funding sources. New Mexico's early voting window is open now through November 2nd, with expanded early voting locations opening up on October 19th. Residents of the state who have yet to register can still do so in person all the way up through Election Day on Tuesday, November 5th. For KRWG Public Media, I'm Jonny Coker.